Welcome to the Pool Nation podcast, where it's all pool talk. And we ain't talking about netting and jetting or splashing and dashing. We're talking about becoming a nation of pool pros. We talk about the latest products, trends, and training in the pool industry. Now let's welcome your host, with over a decade of industry insider experience and still the reigning champion of Marco Polo, Edgar De Jesus. With his co-host, the fastest netter in the West, John Chikalis, and Zach, the pool boy Nicholas.
Hey guys, welcome to the Pool Nation podcast with myself, your host, Edgar De Jesus. And yes, I am the reigning champion of Marco Polo, along with John JJ Flawless. And I want to welcome everybody to our special podcast, the podcast where it's all pool talk and we ain't talking about netting and jetting or splashing and dashing. We're talking about becoming a nation of pool pros. And yes, we will talk about the latest products, trends, and training in the pool industry. Before we get started today, guys, I want to thank our sponsors for this podcast, Ultimate Pool Tools and Pool Invoice. We want to thank them for their support. So good evening, everybody. John, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Edgar. Looking forward to actually doing a podcast on a little bit more than just, usual chemistry talk or product or knowledge and stuff like that, but more of the nuts and bolts and relationships, because it's pretty much the funding gate. We don't have the opportunity to sell anything if we don't have that account, or if we don't present ourselves well at the start. So I'm looking forward to talking about the good stuff.
That's awesome. So let's get started. All right. So last Friday, we had our live with Michael Ferry and Pentair, and we're waiting for Pentair to approve the final audio. Once we have that, we'll upload that podcast. So we wanted to have a podcast ready for you on Monday, since that's when we release our podcast. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a special podcast for this week. We did our Instagram live last week, and we got so many requests for the 7 steps of quoting rates that we decided to do a podcast on it. So this week, we're going to leave behind the pool talk and we're going to put on our sales hat, guys. Yep, we're going to talk about the 7 steps of quoting pool service. So quoting service or repairs is the sales aspect of your business, and sales are going to be the key to your success. And if you don't have it down, guys, it's going to kill your earning potential. So guys, just like everything else, if you follow the steps and practice the steps, that will put you in a great place. And once you practice it, it's going to come like second nature to you. So it doesn't matter if you're a single pool guy or if you're a pool company, providing a well-defined sales process is going to be crucial to your business. Remember that quoting is a sales aspect of your business. And that's one of the things I talk about all the time. You've got to put that sales hat on. So I'm going to quote one of our followers, John, that I thought was phenomenal. And it was Scott Davis Hunt. He saw our topic on the Instagram and he said, "I see a lot of questions about the technical aspect of the industry, but rarely the important stuff like this. Technical don't matter if you can't close the deal." And I thought he hit it on just so perfectly, because that's exactly what we need to talk about. We need to talk about those sales.
Yeah, exactly what I said at the beginning too. This is, anybody can talk about chemistry or LSI or, all these things, or products, or how to install and how to do all this and that. But if you're not in the backyard, and if you don't have a clientele list, or if you're not servicing pools, or if you go out for a repair and you can't build a relationship, then it doesn't matter, because if you don't have that client, then all that knowledge, all that information that you have means nothing if you can't build a relationship with them, or you can't sell yourself first or your company first, and I think that's what we're going to really dig down deep in this podcast. We're going to kind of explain, hey, look, this is a funding gate. This is what you need to understand first and you need to master first, so that the rest will follow, because once we get comfortable with who we are and what we can do and what we can offer to our clients, once we hit that milestone, then everything else kind of falls into place.
Yes. And for any great company, sales is going to be one of the most important things, because just like anything, whether you have a product or a service or any of that, if you can't sell, you're not going to be doing well. Okay. So let's talk about the 7 steps, and I'll go through them fairly quickly here, and then we'll dive into each one of them individual. So the first one is going to be the initial contact. So the very first step of that sales process is going to be the initial contact. The second is going to be the rapport or the ice breaking. Number 3 is going to be to showcase your product or your knowledge. Number 4 is going to be the needs and the discovery. Number 5 is going to be for you to offer a solution. Number 6, you're going to handle objections and close the sale. And number 7, you're going to follow up, and you're even going to follow up on the repeat business and the referrals. If we talk about step number 1, which is the initial contact, in our industry, it could be one of two things. So for example, if you are a single pool guy, you own your own company, and that phone call comes in, boom, that's your initial contact. Now, go ahead, John, go ahead.
Yeah, phone calls, super important, right? Because the majority of our leads come from a phone call. So they'll look us up online, or we were referred to by somebody. And the most important thing when you answer the phone, and I learned this lesson when I first started, and I made the mistake once, and I'll kind of get into that in a minute. But when a client's calling you and you have your business phone, you need to understand that this is your business phone. It's not a personal phone. It's when a customer is calling, or when somebody's calling, you don't know who it is. You need to assume it's a customer every second, every day if you're going to answer that phone. And when we answer, we initially go, J&J Flawless Pools, this is John. How can I help you? And what that establishes is, hey, you're calling my company. This is who you're calling, who you're looking to talk to. This is my name, and what can I do for you? And if you answer in any other way, aside from stating what your company is and what your name is, you're going to get an immediate reaction from that customer, or you're automatically, like, let's say, for instance, you answer the phone, go hello by accident. And I did that once. Or somebody called, I thought it was somebody that it wasn't. And I answered the phone and I said, hey, hello. And they kind of step back and they go, is this Flawless Pools? And I go, oh, yes, I'm sorry, this is John. And then immediately they go, okay, never mind. I don't want to do business with a company that answers their phone like that, and hangs up on me. And I learned my lesson, and I was like immediately going, oh, wow. I was a little upset at first, you know what I mean? But I said, oh, no, it's my fault. I'm setting the standard here. I'm not just this one guy. I want to be able to portray myself, and our company is a professional company, right? When people call, that's what they expect.
Right as you answer the phone, like you were talking about, it's exactly that, right? They are calling JJ Flawless Pools. So when you say JJ Flawless Pools, they're going, okay, this is the right number. And then when you say this is John, they automatically now know who it is that they're talking to. So just in something so professional as that, you're giving that customer everything and every invitation for them to go, this guy's professional, this company's professional.
Well, for sure. It's like everything. So when you go to, let's say you want to go buy something or purchase something, or let's say you're hiring a moving company, you can either go look on Craigslist and hire a guy, and there's nothing wrong with this, but you can hire somebody who's a single guy who has, just by whatever his name is or her name is, right? Or you can hire a professional moving company. And, you automatically, what do you assume between the two, right? You're going to figure out, okay, this professional moving company is going to obviously cost more money, right? Because they're a company, they have probably set standards, they have insurance, they've been doing it for a long time, they have the best equipment, where if you call somebody who doesn't portray themselves that way, or doesn't make the customer feel that way, they're automatically going to devalue you as a company.
So guys, here's the other thing that tends to happen in our industry. And, you have to remember that you have to get to that phone. And I always hear in our industry, and John, you probably heard this too, is I called 5 other pool companies and you're the first one that answers.
Always. So,
when you're in a business and you're a smaller business and you're trying to grow, you have to do everything that you can to get to that phone. And then 2, to return that call right away, because that clock starts ticking and the impression of you and your business begin at that moment. So if you take 3 hours to answer, that's the impression that you're giving. If you call back right away, that's the impression that you're giving. So there's no reason to wait to call your next customer. That's the person that's going to give you their business, or even that, an existing customer. There really is no reason to go ahead and wait. Here we can also talk, John, about, we get those guys that are the independent pool guys, what we call them, right? The single pool guy. But then guys, for you guys out there that work for a company, and so the office schedules your appointments, you haven't had that initial contact yet. So for you, it's a little bit different, because you need to now also include that step, which is the dress to impress. you need to make sure that even if you're the single guy or working for a company, that's now going to be your first interaction with that customer. And you really want to add that to your impression for your customer. So you're trying to put your best foot forward, and you need to make sure that you have a uniform. And for me, John, I used to have red shirts that had my logo on it. I wore black Dickies. And when I was wearing a hat, it was either a red or a black hat with my company logo. And what I'm trying to tell the customer at that point is that I'm professional, and something as simple that allows you to stand out from the rest of the guys, right? I'm a small company. I'm trying to grow. So I'm using every tool that I can in that sales process to put me to the top of the list on that customer. The other thing that you guys can do, guys, to in that initial contact is, use the tools that you have at your disposal, right? That show that you're different. So for example, if you have a spin touch or a pH meter or salt tester, take that with you. Show that customer that you have the right tools to do the job, and take a good look at those tools and use them to your advantage. Remember, guys, you only have that first initial impression, and you want to do that from the beginning standpoint of that initial contact to going there and meeting with the customer and they're seeing you for the first time.
Edgar, I couldn't agree anymore, and for the guys that are just starting out and, they have a lower budget, or there might not be a big company out there, or, where they have a bunch of trucks, or, they have a bunch of capital that they can put into fancy uniforms and beautiful trucks, but the reality is this, and we've heard it before, you got to fake it till you can make it. You know what I mean? You have to portray who you want to be in order to become that person. It's going to happen. So you have to emulate what your end goal is and who you want to be. And if it's going to cost you, X amount of money, or you're not going to have to drink a Starbucks coffee, or you're going to have to cut out on a Happy Meal, or whatever it is that you do, make the sacrifice and spend a little extra money on a nice quality polo shirt, and a uniform. If you can't do whatever you can, get your truck wrapped, or at least put a magnet on there, or put some kind of your logo on the truck, keep it nice and clean and presentable. That's so critical. So many pool guys that I've seen, that go around and their trucks are just thrashed, and I know, and mine's been thrashed before too. You're out there doing an install, you're out there doing something, you've done 13, 14, 15, 20 pools and 2 installs or whatever, and you just want to get home and your pool's trashed. Your truck's trashed. Take the time when you get home to fix it and to get it organized again, or that next morning get it organized. Because when you pull up to a customer's home, that image that you're representing, goes a long way. Because if they see that you're not taking care of yourself and you look like a slob, your shirt's wrinkled up, or it's ripped up and there's a bunch of chlorine stains over it, or you're wearing flip-flops and your truck's a mess, how are they going to expect, or how are you going to expect to have them believe or trust that you're going to take good care of their pool and their home when you don't even own it? So
yeah, and remember, guys, this is you're trying to get the advantage in to get the sales. So that's got to be a part of your sales process, and that initial contact with the customer. Okay, guys. So the next one that we're going to talk about is rapport building, the icebreaker. And, one of the things that people are going to dread the most is making conversations with strangers. And it's no different when you have to meet with a new customer. It's important that you guys realize that this customer is going to be just as nervous to interview you as you are, and it's a two-way street. So one of the things that you need to do is you need to look for things in common with the customer. To get rid of that awkward moment. You're trying to grab that awkward moment, that silence, and you're trying to fill it. So one of the things that I used to do is, as soon as I arrived to somebody's house, I started looking for something that I might have in common. And it didn't matter what that was. It could be that they had pets, or they were into gardening, that they had young kids. I used to look for things that I was going to use as an icebreaker. So as you arrive, you start looking for things. So I used to look for, an example, sports stickers or flags. Or if I went past the garage, I'd look in there to see if there was anything that I could use as that icebreaker, right? Did they have golf clubs or anything that could give me that point to break that ice? I know some of the guys that they take dog treats in their back pocket. And if they have dogs, they ask if they can give them treats. And so that's creating that icebreaker, that distraction from that awkward moment. As you're getting to that house, you're constantly looking for something that's going to be a topic of conversation. And so it could be that they have a classic car. It really could be anything. And then you use that as you get there to break that ice and now start to have a conversation.
Exactly. So look, when the initial contact happens, it's usually by phone or by email. And at that time, you're exchanging names, right? And I make it a point. So when a customer calls me and I set up an appointment for a new customer quote or for repair, immediately put it in my calendar. I save the customer's name in my phone. And the minute I pull up to the home, you get out and I usually let them know. I'm texting them, hey, I'm on my way. I'm going to be here within 5-10 minutes, or I'll be here at this time exactly when I know. And they're usually 9 out of 10 times they're already outside or they're waiting for you. And when you come out, the first thing you want to do, and this is what works for us, is you call them by their name and you say, hey, how are you? And you don't talk about anything but you don't talk about the pool whatsoever. You kind of talk about the day out here in the desert because it's always hot, especially during summertime. We talk about the heat, right? And that's a common thing, and it's just like, oh my God, it's so hot. Or, oh, thank God it's cooled off a little bit. Geez, the humidity's just been brutal, hasn't it? Or how's everybody been, or crazy times we're in, or just different things like that. And you kind of immediately you bring down those barriers, because a lot of times, especially if they're asking for a repair and you're going to tell them, hey, look, oh my God, this guy's going to try to sell me or try to do this, or, hey, I need my pool cleaned. How much is he going to charge me? When you don't lead with that and you start and accept them as like a human being and you talk to them as like a friend, it immediately, they put down their guard and they just feel a little bit more comfortable, and you just kind of chit chat about anything other than the pool. And then you kind of walk back to the pool and you kind of just chit chat with them and see how they are, and ask them simple questions like, hey, do you guys have any dogs or any children, anybody swimming? How often do you guys here full time and stuff like that? And you just kind of, shoot the, what I mean, for about, 5-10 minutes or so. And then I sit and simply go, okay, well, what can I do for you? So I know you said you had an issue with this, or you're looking for new pool service. Why are we here? Do you currently have service? Have you, as your pool guy, did you let your pool guy go? Is this a new home that you came into? And then we start our conversation that way. And then we build off based off what we talked about and what their needs are.
Yeah. And I agree. I think it's just like you said, I used to do the one for the weather all the time, but normally what I would do is find out if they, were from California or from Texas. And if they weren't from that state, then automatically I would kind of go into, oh, what's the weather like that in the wintertime? And they'd be like, oh, it snows over there. And of course I'd be like, oh yeah, I can't do that. I don't do snow. I'm too much of a chicken. And I would kind of try to, drop that guard. The other thing I do, John, is I get them to try to talk about themselves, because normally people like to talk about themselves. And at this point, I'm just kind of trying to create that rapport before any conversation happens, like you said about the pool. And so I try to get them talking about themselves. And sometimes when they're nervous, if you ask the right question, that's an open-ended question, they'll kind of start telling you about whatever it is. Or I was born and raised here, and I've lived here at this, and I went to school here, and I went here over here. And then next thing you know, they're doing all the talking, they're relaxed because they don't have that pocket of silence. And it allows you to kind of start, okay, now I need to start thinking about going into that step number 3.
Exactly. And then it's more of like, it's even, sometimes they just need to vent too, because they had a bad experience with the last pool service, right? Or, out here, what we get to is, they're not full-time customers, or they don't live here full-time, and they come down every 6 months or maybe every 3 months, or they're snowbirds, and they come down and their pool's just wrecked, right? Or something's wrong with it, or, this is messed up. And, when you just kind of just talk to them, they just kind of open up and they just give you all the information you need, right? And they get to vent out and say, okay, look, you know what I mean? This is what I'm having. And then you've accumulated all this information. And then now you're able to, when you start talking about the pool, you'll know how to approach it, what to say, what not to say. You know what I mean? You're more guided and you have an understanding. And the client is more open to listening to you because they automatically don't feel like you're just there to sell them, right? Or just there to do this, or, or, oh, he's just trying to get as much money as possible from me.
Yeah.
You start listening to these types of things, and it could be anything that they say, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We go out to dinner, or we like to use a jacuzzi, or we like to use this or whatever. And you can start taking this information and looking at their system and go, oh, okay, well, we can upgrade you to an app system to where you can control everything from your app or from your phone. And, based off the things you qualify them on certain things.
And right. And so, that people are going to give you all that information. So, remember, guys, you're in that rapport stage. So you want to kind of focus on breaking that awkwardness and allowing them to then kind of talk to you. And as long as you've got them talking like that, and they are going in and telling you whatever it is about the previous pool guy or this or that, you look at this as step number 2 and you go, okay, I broke the ice. I'm building rapport. I'm on step number 2. I'm looking good. Now I can jump in and I can go into step number 3, right? So you're broken that rapport. And just like John was saying, they're going to start talking about, the pool or the previous guy. And then at that point is really when you're going to go to step number 3. And so we're going to go into that in just a second, John. Let's take a quick minute to hear from our sponsors. And then what we'll do is when we come out on the other side, we're going to jump into step number 3, which is where you're going to showcase your product. And yes, that's you. You are the product. So let's listen to a word from our sponsors and we'll be right back.
The Hyper Pole from Ultimate Pool Tools is a pool care pole designed by pool professionals for pool professionals, featuring precision-crafted carbon fiber and stainless steel construction. Go to ultimatepooltools.com or Instagram at Ultimate Pool Tools. Introducing Pool Invoice. Pool Invoice is pool billing software that was created specifically for the pool service and repair industry. It was developed for our industry and only our industry. Pool Invoice was built with recurring billing in mind. You can print, email, text invoices, or even send via WhatsApp. You can add reoccurring or yearly charges, accept credits, and set up autopay. You can even see when customers have seen the invoice. It even has a customer portal where they can log in and see, print, and pay invoices. It has all of your customers' information on one page, so you don't need to search through hundreds of invoices looking for the one you need. Just go to the customer's profile, and it's all at your fingertips. It's currently in beta phase, so anyone can use it for free. Just go to poolinvoice.com and request an invitation at the bottom of the page. Pool Invoice was made for you.
All right, guys, now that we're back, let's, talk about step number 3, and that's to showcase your product. And as I mentioned before, yes, that is you. You are the product. So this is where you need to showcase yourself. So here you need to understand that in the pool industry, you are the product and you're the product that you're selling. So you need to sell yourself. At the end, the result is going to be a clean pool, but you are that product that is doing that job. So people want somebody that they can get along with. They want somebody that's knowledgeable, and people want somebody that they can trust. So one of the easiest things that you could do here, a tactic that you could use here, and you hear me talk about it all the time, is to educate your customer. And what I mean by this is take your water chemistry knowledge, learn it, and practice it in a way that you can break it down for the customer. And what you're going to do is you're going to walk them through that process. And you have to remember, guys, this is what you do for a living. So you better get good at it so that you can nail this part. So what you're going to want to do is, you can talk about chlorine and you can tell them what the range it should be in. You can talk about the pros and the cons of it. Talk about the pH. If it's too low, talk about the damage that it could do to the pool or the plaster or the equipment. You're going to tell them that a low pH will damage the heater and that will damage that plaster. Test the calcium. And if it's too low, the water will pull the calcium from the plastering and crack it. You're selling your knowledge. And by giving them all of this information, they're doing 2 things. They're looking at you and going, wow, A, this guy really knows his stuff. And 2, he's talking about the stuff that can damage this pool, that can damage the equipment. And that's somebody that we want. We want somebody that's going to be able to protect that investment. You have to practice this if you want to get good at it. And guys, you're going to have to practice in front of the mirror with another person. You could even practice the order in which you're going to talk about it. So until you get comfortable, once you get comfortable, what's going to happen is this conversation is going to be a lot more free flowing. But at the beginning, practice it, because this is where you're demonstrating to the customer that you're knowledgeable about the water chemistry, about what it is that you do. By the time that you finish this part of the sales process, guys, the customer will either know how to test chemicals or simply they're going to be confused. But either way, you have established yourself as the expert. And I do certain things, John. I always make it a point to talk about the pH and the damages. And I also talk about like the TDS, and I explain it to the customers. And you guys hear me say this all the time. I always tell them, what evaporates out of the water is pure water. So I tell them, picture it this way. You have your pool full of water, and what evaporates is going to be that pure water, and it's going to leave behind all that gunk. So think of it as mud in your pool. So the higher the TDS is, the more gunk you're going to have in there. And so when you're trying to add another chemical to the pool, instead of that chemical going to do its job, it's going to go fight with all that other gunk and all that junk that is inside that pool. So learn facts like that you can be very knowledgeable about, and you can sell yourself on that step. Now, guys, later on, as you've practiced it more and more, it doesn't have to be as scripted, but go prepared at the beginning, because it's a step of preparing mentally. What are those things that you can talk about to impress your customer? So remember, in this step, you're going to sell yourself and you're going to sell that knowledge. By the time that you're done, your customer should feel that you've taught him more about water chemistry in 10 minutes than the last 5 pool guys ever did. So I think that's very important.
Absolutely. And not only that, so the whole purpose of this podcast, right, and the whole purpose of talking about this is, one, so that we can provide a better service than the rest, right? So we can better ourselves. And when you're going to a client's house, if you're competing with price and you know it's a pricing and that's all they're looking for, then, and that's the type of pool service company you are, God bless you, do what you need to do. There's always room for those types of people out there, you know. But if you're looking to up your game and you want to get more for the service that you provide, you have to differentiate yourself from the competition when you meet that customer. And the way we do it when we first start, you know, and when we walk up, it's just like, look, you know, you can hire, if you're looking for somebody to just clean your pool, you can hire anybody to clean your pool. If you're looking for somebody who's gonna take care of your investment and make sure that the pool is safe, clean, clear, and ready for you and your family to swim in at all times, that's what we are. And when you do that, you automatically you elevate yourself. You know, so when you are asking for premium prices for premium service, people understand that, and it kind of clicks and say, hey, look, I'm not the normal pool guy, or I'm not what you might be used to, you know, and this is why we're different. And it all starts from the very beginning. And when it comes down to just like we talk about phone calls, you know, I get probably 3 or 4 different phone calls a day from random people and customers, and they can ask me anything from like, you know, how much are your services, or do I build swimming pools, or can they buy a pool float? I even had somebody call me for that before. But it doesn't matter, you know, if they're asking something about servicing your pool or doing a repair, as soon as I get off the phone with them, I immediately log their name and their information into my phone.
You've told me that, and I even now I look back and I'm like, God, that was such a good move.
Yeah, you know, it's important because, you know, you want to be better than the rest, right? And you want to be able to put a good foot ahead. So when a customer calls, and let's say it's Susan that calls you, and what I would put is Susan, LQ or La Quinta home, rental home on the street or whatever in the name. So if so I have it Susie, and their name is Susie La Quinta rental home, 2 pools. And I save them in there so that, you know, because chances are what happens is after you set an appointment and before you go back out there, they're going to call you again, or you're going to need to contact them. And when they call you and you call them by their first name, or you call them by their last name, or Mr. and Mrs., you know, it automatically impresses them, you know. More importantly, I've had it to where when we service pools, we charge a premium compared to a lot of the other companies out here in the Valley. And we battle with other pool service companies. And I know I've told the story before that offer twice a week service at about $100 a month. Where our service, our bare minimum service is about $150 a month for once a week. And that means even if it's a $5,000, 5,000 gallon spool, it's going to be $150 minimum. But I let customers know that that's the funding gate. And our average is usually about $175 to service the pool. And when we go out there and they're willing and they accept that, and then I go out there and I have that conversation with them, I don't nail every single presentation. More than half of them sometimes say, "Oh, it's a little much for us right now," or whatever. And we'll keep your name and your information. And what I found out over the years, about 6 out of 10, and I've kept lists of all the clients that have called me and where I've gone out and I've done presentations, that within a year or so, they usually call us back for service. And what really nails it is when they do call back, I still have their name and their number on my phone. So when Susie calls me or Susan calls me back, I say, "Hi, Susan, how are you? You ready for us?" And it immediately turns around and go, "Oh, hey, John, how are you? Remembered me?" And, and it just turns into like this, where they feel special and they feel wanted. And then, it's just a critical tool that we use. And it's something so simple that if everybody applies it, it makes a huge difference in being able to close customers or being able to land that account.
One of the things I love doing about all these podcasts and stuff like that is even after 15 years, I learn a lot of things, and I look back and I go, man, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I put that into place? Something so simple like that. And I think this one, and we've talked about it before, but to me, that one's a game changer. It just makes so much sense, because if that person is calling you back because you gave them that good of an impression, that whatever it is, 6 months, 8 months later, they're calling you and you answer the phone and answer with their name. That's just
blows them away.
There's just the nail in the coffin. We're done. They're like, dude, if you increase your price, I'm in. That's one of my favorites from some of the things that we learned and we've talked about, John, is that really kind of taking it to the whole next level. So I hope a lot of guys out there that are listening really kind of use that tactic, because I think it's a game changer. All right, guys. So now let's talk about step number 4. And step number 4 is going to be the discovery part. So here is when you have to figure out why you're there. And so it's the part of the sales call where you need to find out the needs of that customer. So for example, they might tell you that their current pool guy doesn't show up on the same day every week, or that they don't show up every week at all, that they don't brush the pool. You're doing that sales call because they're not happy with who they have. So it's your job to do the discovery in this section. So you need to discover those needs so that you can set yourself up for success. And this is especially important in the part of that sales, and it takes place right from the very first time that you meet the customer. If you pay attention and you ask the simple open-ended questions, the customer is going to tell you everything that you need in order to sell them the product. And again, you are the product. You're selling yourself, who is an expert at what they do. So to me, John, it was always important to find out why they were not happy with their current guy, so that I could figure out if I could meet their needs. And so I had ones where I could absolutely meet them, but then I had other ones where I couldn't meet them. And you kind of need to figure that out in this part of the sales process.
Oh, absolutely. So after you build a rapport and you go through the icebreaker, and you've kind of had a good little conversation with the client. And I always open up with, okay, so what can I help you with? Why am I here? Or why are you looking for new pool service, or whatever, however you want to phrase it, based on what you've learned from them, and then kind of just listen to them and say, and the usual thing is this, is like, oh, I can never get a hold of my pool guy. And this goes back to what you talked about earlier, Edgar, about answering your phone. And if you don't answer your phone, call them back immediately, because the number one thing we hear is, hey, people don't, nobody answers the phone, or this is the 5th pool company I've called. And then the second complaint is, I can't get a hold of my pool guy, or I don't know where he's at, or he's not answering his phone or returning his phone calls. So at the very beginning, if somebody calls your business and you ignore that phone call, or you can't get to it, and then you forget to call them back, or an email that's sent to you, or whatever, you're already putting yourself in the same position the other pool service company was at. You know what I mean? You're not at that higher standard. So when you talk to them, go, hey, so what is it? What can we do for you? Or what's the issue? And they'll go, hey, oh, my pool guy doesn't show up. Or they might tell you, I'm here and I see them and they come and they just drop a little bit of drops here and there into the pool. Or I watch them on my camera and I see them literally walk in, drop a little bit of chlorine, and then just walk out. You know what I mean? And it just kind of gives you an idea of what their expectations are. I'm a believer not to ask them what they expect from me as a pool service company, because then I think you open up the floodgates there, because then all of a sudden they're going to go, well, I want you to vacuum every single time that you're here. I want you to spend 30 minutes while you're here, 45 minutes or an hour. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. I want you to do this. And then it becomes real unrealistic.
Yeah.
You need to be able to set yourself up as a professional when you go there. You need to be confident in the service you provide, but without being arrogant, because that's a turnoff, right? And nobody wants to deal with somebody who's cocky and arrogant, right? You want to be understanding to their needs and you want to be respectful, but you don't want to be submissive, right? You don't want to be desperate, and customers can sense that, like, my guy doesn't vacuum every single time. Oh, I'll vacuum every single time when I'm here. Or we vacuum every single time when we're here. Or we're never late, or we're always here at the same exact time. Do not overpromise and underdeliver. You're there as the pool professional offering a service for them, and you need to lay out what your expectations are, or what your services are that you provide for them, and then they make the decision based off of that. This is, it's not you're not there to serve them only, if that makes any sense, Edgar.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. There has to be that balance. And I think a lot of the new guys need to understand, the more comfortable that you get with these steps, the more confidence you're going to have when you're talking to the customers. And I agree with you 100%. And this needs discovery part, you have to be realistic to what you're going to do. And I've had clients where I did that at the beginning, and they say, well, they never brush. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll brush all the time. And I figured I'd just kind of ninja brush every time. And then the lady would come out and stand next to me and say, you need to brush more. You haven't brushed over here. And then I'm in a situation where I'm like, okay, now I need to drop that customer. But in the needs and the discovery part of that situation, I mishandled that sale. Absolutely. So it's very important. So from here, you go from the needs discovery to step number 5, which is going to be to offer a solution to those needs and discovery. And you see, guys, how it just kind of flows. So you're talking and you're getting those needs. And now what you're going to do is you're going to be able to offer a solution to each one of those. And it was just like John was saying. So, my guy doesn't show up the same day of the week. So, okay, well, I show up on the same day every week. And what I used to tell my customers is I always do my pools even in the exact same order. So unless there's a problem with the previous pools, I'm always around here within like a 2-hour frame. And so you offer them a solution to that. So here in this step number 5, you're going to offer solutions to the needs that they're talking about. And, again, you might tell them that you're going to be there in the same day every week, or that you'll make sure that the pool is brushed. Here, you're reassuring them that you're going to fill their needs. And I agree 100% like John. This is not a submissive part where you just agree to everything because you have your business and you run your business the way that you do. But as long as you pay attention to the customer, you're going to be able to fill those needs. And this is going to be one of the easiest parts of it. All you have to do is repeat back to them what they're looking for in that pool service and what your solution is going to be. And so take the negatives that they give you about their previous provider and turn them into positives about the service that you're going to deliver.
Absolutely. So when you're there and you're trying to lay expectations down, right? And that's when you hire anybody for service. Okay, I'm gonna pay you this, and you're gonna give me that. And when customers start to get into how much time do you spend here, or do you vacuum every single time when you're here, or do you brush every single time that you're here and stuff like that? I let customers know, rest assured, look, my job is to make sure that your pool is pristine when I leave, right? When I'm here, your pool's safe and healthy for you and your family to swim in. Whether that takes me 20 minutes or it takes me 45 minutes, that's just based off of many different factors, the weather and stuff, and the condition of the pool. I go, but we will not put on a show when we're there at your pool. There's a certain things that we go through that steps that we take that take about 15 to 17 minutes for us to complete. And that's if everything goes smoothly, right? And nothing else is wrong with the pool. It's perfect and ready to go. When we're done, and we leave and we let the customers know that. But go, hey, Mr. and Mr. Customer, if we're here and something happened or there's something that needs to be attention, we're not going to put it off. If we have to stay here longer, we will. Just rest assured when we leave that your pool's going to be ready for you to swim in. And if there's any issues, we'll contact you or whatever. So we find that when you lay down those expectations, it prevents, and I know it's hard to do that sometimes because people want the account and don't want to lose it, but in the long run, it pays for itself, because if you lay those expectations down and you get the expectations from the customers and you give them your expectations, you guys find a happy medium, and there's a mutual respect. You know what I mean? To where not, it's like servant and subservient, look, we're in this together.
This is the step in that sales process that you're going to address those, and that you're going to be able to kind of come to an agreement of what that service is going to look like. So this is your best opportunity to be able to do that. All right, John. So let's talk about step number 6. And step number 6 is handle objections and close the sale. And I always say, always assume the sale. So here you're going to overcome objections. And in our pool business industry, in our case, it's mostly going to be price, but in the sales profit process, you have to sell yourself. So if you're pushing price, you need to add that to your sales pitch. It needs to be part of that sales pitch. And I'll tell you that if you don't get objections on your price, then you're probably not charging enough. And you guys have heard me talk about this. You need to make sure with all your sales that you are always pushing the envelope and pushing that sales process to get better and better, because the better you get at selling, the higher rate you'll be able to get, because you're constantly pushing that rate. You have to constantly push that threshold, guys, okay? So you have to assume the sale. So if everything is good with you, I can start next week, or I will start next week. Those are words that are assuming the sale. And if you have demonstrated to the prospective customer that knowledge, that trustworthiness, and that professionalism, there's no reason that they're going to say no. And here's the other thing I'm going to throw in, guys. When you're in front of that person, a lot of people don't like to say no. So you're already in a great spot when you're in front of that customer. So people are very reluctant to saying no. And if you satisfy their needs of all those other steps, you're going to be in a great shot to be able to close that. I think the only objections that they would have always is going to be related to price. And this is when you need to dig deep and you need to explore and discover their needs. So you need to save some of those for the objection process, right? Because each one is going to be closer in that step to saying yes.
Absolutely. And I kind of want to touch about, charging and what to charge. Don't just charge more money just because you're going to charge more money. You need to understand. So look, if you're, whatever your service dollar amount is, there needs to be value added or value attached to it. And you need to be able to live up to that price. And I'll talk about a quick lesson that I had. And this was one of the issues when I first started. I had a pool service or a client that we had, and this was one of my original ones. And we had them for years. But they were new to pools. They came from Canada, and this was they bought a rental home or a seasonal home out here in the desert. And my minimum at the time, it was a little spool. My minimum at the time still was $150 per month for once a week. And when she came, I talked, I did my presentation, I did everything I was supposed to do, and she agreed to it. She was happy. She had beautiful service. She couldn't say anything bad about us, and we did everything we were supposed to do. Right, we kept her pool perfect. But one year when she came down, this was after having it for about 2 years, her and her husband were there, and she just happened to see another pool guy that was in the neighborhood that was taking care of another pool. And that other pool guy, they were just talking or whatever, and then he came and he looked at the pool and said, "Oh yeah, I can take care of your pool for $80 a month for twice a week. So I'm charging $150 for once a week, and he's charging $80 for twice a week." Well, I get a phone call from the husband saying that, "Oh, John, I can't believe that you're ripping us off, or that you're trying to take advantage of us," and stuff like that. And what could I possibly say at the time, right? That's my fault. One of my first accounts that I ever took over, I didn't know. I didn't explain it to them so they can make that decision. I just offered, this is what works for me, and this is what I charge because I'm here at your pool for X amount of time. These are the chemicals I use, but I didn't explain that to them, and I lost a customer. And from that point on, I made it a mission, and I tell every single client I speak to, the first thing out of my mouth is, hey, look, we are not the cheapest pool service company out here, but we are one of the best. And when I quote you my price and I tell you, hey, that I'm charging you $200 for this pool for once a week, you can go find 100 other pool companies that'll come service the same pool, probably for about between $120 and $150 for twice a week. But I want you to know that off the bat. So what happens is immediately it takes that away from them. So now they understand, right? They know, okay, this guy's not ripping me off, because in their mind, they don't understand it. But they go, okay, look, all right, okay, I get to make the choice. And I know John, I know J&J Flawless Pools, that they charge this much because they do this, because they do that, because they do this. So next time when their neighbor's around, or they talk to their neighbor and their neighbor comes over and says, oh yeah, I have a pool guy, and yeah, he charges $100 a month and he does that. The customers already understand that, and they know what the other guys charge, and they know what we charge and why we charge it and the value that we bring for our service. So not to go on a rant or anything like that, but what happens is if you just charge these prices but don't have anything to back it up, and you don't explain to the customers, hey, I am charging you a premium, or you can, because these people aren't silly, everybody, when they need something, they'll turn around, they'll call a couple places to get prices. But if you disarm them and let them know, hey, look, you have choices in life, just like anything else. You get what you pay for. So my service is X amount. So if you normally charge, or the normal rate's $125 around your town, and you want to charge $175 or $200, let your customers know that. Go, hey, look, I'm better than them, and I offer more, and this is what you get for that. And you're going to pay more with us, but you're going to get more in return. So they understand that, and it doesn't come back to bite you in the end. If that makes sense.
No, that's a great story. So John, let's do this. Let's take a word from our sponsors here. And then when we come back, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the last step.
The sound of you continually pitching pool care poles into the trash. The sound of you using an Ultimate Pool Tools carbon fiber pool care pole for years to come. Go to ultimatepooltools.com or Instagram at ultimatepooltools.
All right, guys. Now that we're back, let's talk about step number 7, and that's going to be follow-up, and that you're going to follow up with the repeat business and also the referrals. And this is one, guys, that is another key one, especially in that sales process. And when you want to button up that sales process and you want to nail it from the initial all the way to the closing. And that's going to be that you're going to want to make sure that you follow up with customers. And this is the one that most people get wrong in the sales cycle. And the follow-up is especially important, because it doesn't matter if you get the pool or not, you're always going to want to follow up. If you get the account, you send a simple text saying it was great to meet you. Thank you for the opportunity. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact me. Even if you don't get it, and this is some of the things that John does, that even if you don't get the account, it was great to meet you. I want to thank you for the time to meet with me. In the future, if you have any pool services needs, feel free, or have any questions, feel free to call me. And here's where John was talking earlier, that he puts that name in that phone. That customer calls 6 months from now, and he's going to answer with that customer's name. And guess what? He's just going to nail it right to the end. And that's a perfect point there. So I always follow up whether or not they hire me for the service. I want to leave that door open. So I wait a couple hours, I text, I email them back, I thank them for the opportunity. And of course, it's going to be, if somebody is in the sales process with me where it's only by text, then I'm going to use by text. And then if it's a phone call, then it's going to be a phone call. But what I do is, if they hired me, I always confirm when I'm going to be there for the next service, right? For that first service. But more importantly, if somebody doesn't hire me, I do leave that door open and let them know to reach out if they have any further questions. And it could be, even if you don't want to hire me, but you just have a simple question, I want that door to be open for them to call me, because it's going to give me the opportunity down the road. And I think the other thing that we don't tend to do, John, is even when it's repeat business. So even if it's somebody that calls you that you only do repairs, and they call you more than once and you're kind of their repair guy, I think we kind of tend to get comfortable, but it's very important to at least go through the sales step and button everything up. The same thing from the initial contact where you're answering right away. But to that customer, you might not have to go as strong on all the steps. But then on that closing, I think it's very important to thank that customer every time because they're going to remember that. And then the other one that I think that we don't touch on a lot is when we get referrals. And I'm kind of guilty on this one, John. And a lot of times I wouldn't even send a text or a thank you to that customer. And kind of as I talk to it with Mike and the sales pitch and stuff, I'm like, man, I always wanted to be that super professional guy. And I can't believe I dropped the ball on that one. That's a huge one right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially you want to thank, and those are the types of customers you want, because you want to have more, because hopefully you're in a position where the customers that you want to have, and they're good customers, they're good clients, they're good pools, and that's what you have. And when people are referring other people, they're usually referring friends, or family members, or other people that are like-minded, or have the same type of mentality, right? And those are the types of people you want, especially if you charge a premium. They do all the sales for you, right? So look, if I'm charging twice as much as the next guy, and my guy is recommending me to their friend, what's he going to tell them? Oh, and I've had it happen a lot. Oh, we know that you're not the cheapest. We know that you're a lot more expensive than most of them. And Bill or Susan or whoever, recommended you and told us about it. They've already done all the selling for you, right? And there's no need to break the ice. There's no need to try to convince them or to go through it all. They already have it because they have real life testimony from somebody they know or they trust or they care about, right? And that's way more important than what you're going to try to sell them. So they already believe you. And then those are like the most critical or the best customers you have. And then being able to just give them a simple thank you, means the world. And it encourages them. One, they know that you're appreciative, right? It makes you understand and feel good that, I must be doing a good job, right? And then it entices them or makes them want to recommend you more, right? Because you're taking care of them. Now, I don't recommend, I know some people go, you refer and we're going to give you money off your monthly rate or whatever. I think that's the wrong type of business. We don't try that model, or we don't try to do that. We never, when we don't negotiate prices, so when it comes down to like when you're selling to a customer and you're trying to close them and you're trying to do what you need to do and your price is too high and then they walk away and sometimes you might want to say, I can do it for a little less, or they'll go, if you can lower it by $25, then we'll do it. We just never negotiate.
I agree, John. I think that it's very important. When you're new, I think you try to land everything that you can, and you don't give the thought to this sales process. And so you just show up and somebody negotiates. You always kind of think that you should take everything and that by taking everything, it's the right thing. And it's not. And we can really talk about that on a different podcast about the right customer, the wrong customer, even what some of those crazy experiences are. Because I think when we talk about those experiences, everybody can kind of relate to something that's happened and maybe how they can, differently handle that customer. So
yeah, because the minute you do that, you've immediately put the ball in their court, right? And you've lowered your service. So, their view of you. So look, if you're going to charge me, and I'm just throwing out numbers, $150 or $200, and then now you're going to negotiate now $150. So you were ripping me off by $50, right? You know what I mean? So it's like, there's the minute you do that, you set yourself up for failure when it comes down to like lowering your rates, or, I can install this pump and this pump's going to cost you, or I can fix this for $200. Oh, can you do it for $150? And you, whatever. Yeah, I'll do it for $150. No, you can't. You know what I mean? You do what your price is, and people will respect you for it.
Yeah. I think, guys, if you guys start to use these steps, and here's what we're going to do is for you guys out there that would like these 7 steps, I can send you, the steps that we created here today to talk about those points so that you can have it and you can use it as a reference. So what you're going to want to do is just DM me on Pool Nation on our Instagram page, pool.nation, and just send me a message there. And then what I'll do is I'll just ask you for your email and then shoot it straight over to you so that you can have it and you can follow those steps. But guys, in order to get really good at sales, you have to practice. And you're going to want to go through these steps. You're going to want to become a professional in every aspect of your business. Sales is no different than cleaning pools. That's a task of your job. Sales is another task of your job. And you guys hear me say this all the time. You got to wear your sales hat. So start to practice these 7 points. Put them into play, and you will see how your sales game will get stronger, and that will allow you to charge those higher rates. So guys, I want to thank everybody for listening today. John, I want to thank you for your time as usual and your knowledge and your way to be able to break things down for the guys. So guys, we will be on next Friday. So I'm looking forward to it. Next week, John, we're going to talk everything about CalHypo. I'm going to go to school because I've never used CalHypo. So I am excited and I have a lot of questions about it.
Thanks, Edgar.
So guys, we will talk next Friday. Have a great one.
Thanks for listening to the Pool Nation podcast. You can listen to us live every Friday here at 8 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Central, and 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can find us at Pool Nation or poolnationpodcast.com or Instagram at pool.nation.